Legislature to order, and I'd like to ask to lead us in the pledge of
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for our veterans. A moment of silence. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hartman.
Here.
Rose. Here. Schrader.
Here.
Manine. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Hyde.
Here.
Brzezinski.
Here.
Mano.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Bono.
Here.
Ackerman.
Here.
Peplinski.
Here.
Corse.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Shaw.
Here.
Weekly.
Here. Pursuant to the rule 8, are there any objections or corrections to the minutes out of June 13th? Mr. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, as I review the minutes, and I'm sure that many of us recall some of the events, the minutes do not accurately reflect my actions in the early part of the meeting, a decision, an opinion by the county attorney, and a decision by you to not allow me to speak as a private citizen. It does accurately reflect some of the dialogue that happened at the end of the meeting, but I do want to reflect what happened earlier, because it was my attempt to deliver my statement as a citizen that was denied me. And so I would ask that the minutes be corrected to reflect the action of the chair at that time. I was not present at the time of roll call because I wanted to be here as a citizen and not as a legislator. And for the early part of the session where the legislative for public comment, and I signed in this public comment, and you had indicated that you would not allow me to speak in public comment, that was based on the opinion of the county attorney, and you made that decision. I think the minutes should reflect that denial.
Okay, no problem. We need a vote. We need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Reading in full claims disallowed by the auditor, presented for audit by the legislature. There's nothing else. We'll now dispense with the regular session and allow a presentation by Mr. Smith, Legislator Smith, Human Resources Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to make this presentation this afternoon. And I would like to call him up here to assist me. This is a very happy time to present these awards to the people that volunteered this year to do the income tax assistance program. And they're all members of Kim's Department of Social Services. I'll call your name, and when I call your name, you come up and present these.
Okay, when I just want to stand this one. Andrew Mancuso. Overholt. I'll acknowledge Sarah Riente. She's not available today.
What's the achievements?
I'll also acknowledge Debbie Smith, who's also unavailable today. Kristen Baker. Marsden. And Kathy will, should be noted that Kathy's the coordinator of the program.
You know, this is another example of the type of people that we have working for the county. This is something above and beyond their regular duties, and they're willing to share their time with their fellow workers and make life easier for them. And it's true through the whole county system. Every one of our workers go way beyond what they're really required to do. And I appreciate it for these people and the other people that are here that work for the county. You all do a great job, and I thank you very much.
Tim,
Yes.
just one quick question. How much was brought in?
One second, have it right back.
Astounding. Wonderful.
This year, so tax year 2011, the total federal refunds was $918,157. And the total state refunds was $225,691.
Okay, I'll now call on Maureen Petrie, Herkimer County Prevention Council Director, and Lee Livermore with the Poison Control Center to make a presentation on synthetic drug use.
Thank you for coming in, or having me come and speak today. We've been hearing a lot about the synthetic drug issue in our community lately. And some towns and villages have put in force some local ordinances. And we formed a community partnership at the Herkimer County Prevention Council. It is comprised of local law enforcement, the Sheriff's Department, and some other local agencies. And as you know, we sent a letter to you on May 11th of this year to consider a countywide ordinance banning the sale and or possession of synthetic drugs. Just a brief overview. Synthetic drugs are man-made chemicals that mimic other substances. Thank you. These drugs are typically sold in convenience stores, head shops, and over the internet. There's two different chemicals that are pretty well known in our area now. The synthetic cannabinoids are often referred to as K2 or spice. They mimic the chemical THC, which is found in marijuana. The synthetic cannabinoids can be up to anywhere from 300 to 800 times more potent than the THC that's in marijuana. Synthetic cathinone, which is referred to as bath salts. I know we've all have been hearing a lot about that lately. They can also be referred to as ivory wave or blizzard. This mimics the chemicals found in cocaine or methamphetamine. There's now a variation. I was actually talking to a local law enforcement officer this morning of this compound or chemical that's called glass cleaner. It's also sold as pipe cleaner, and it's sold right here in Herkimer. The dangers of synthetic drugs we're pretty much aware of. Paranoid behavior seems to be one of the key components. Violent behavior or aggression, hallucinations or psychosis, and sometimes even death. The problem with the synthetic drugs is that we have no long-term studies, so we are seeing these symptoms play themselves out. But even if somebody uses them and they don't experience paranoid behavior or some of the other severe symptoms. We have no long-term studies, so we don't know what the effects down the road will be. Just recently, we heard that there's a federal ban on these substances. I guess our question is, I actually contacted the DEA, and they said local laws always reinforce what's happening at the state and federal level. So a countywide ordinance would still be a good measure. Chief Malone in Herkimer has put it through an ordinance, and it's been successful. The city of Rome also put through an ordinance, and they have been very successful in confiscating these substances. I'm going to turn it over to Lee Livermore. He is from upstate New York Poison Center, and he can give us some more local Herkimer County statistics. Lee?
Thank you for the opportunity to present the figures that we have for you today. As a representative of the Upstate New York Poison Center, I'm here in support of the passage of the federal law banning synthetic drugs. Specifically, they added 31 specific cathinones. We would like to provide you with some supporting information. The Upstate New York Poison Center is one of 2 poison centers left in New York State. We cover 54 counties throughout New York State. The numbers that we're receiving on bath salts and synthetic drugs is simply alarming. The New York State Poison Center is charged by the New York State Health Department with reducing the cost, the number, and the severity of poisonings. So far in 2012, we have seen more than 100% increase in bath salt cases alone coming from Herkimer County. Now, most of our reporting comes from hospitals where someone has ingested the drug in one form or another, and they're presented to the emergency room, and that's how we get our numbers. In 2009, there were 0 cases of bath salts in New York State. 2010, we started seeing national numbers where bath salts were becoming an issue. In 2011, we had 118 cases presented to the Poison Center from our 54 county coverage area. 2 of those cases came from Herkimer County. And keeping in mind that within Herkimer County, your one source of health care comes from the Bassett healthcare system in Little Falls. So most of the cases medically will be presented to Oneida County or the other surrounding counties. So far in 2012, there have been 4 confirmed bath salt cases in Herkimer County. Your neighboring county of Oneida went from 8 cases in 2011 to 36 cases in 2012, and this represents just the first 6 months of 2012. So we're trying to advocate to get this poison off of the streets, to help in any way that we can to support agencies such as the Herkimer County Prevention Network, as well as law enforcement and healthcare professionals. That in that sense, we can help reduce the number of poisonings. The cost of the poisonings of a drug like this on our community is absolutely astounding. First and foremost, we need to take in consideration of the first responders, that with a drug like bath salts and the effects that it's proving, there have been documented cases where law enforcement officers use several attempts to tase someone who appears to be under the influence of this drug with 0 effect, even using pepper spray. Our other first responders are the ambulance corps, the volunteers, the healthcare professionals that are faced with caring for this individual, but also protecting themselves. So when someone presents to the emergency room, it doesn't take one nurse or one officer. It takes several, sometimes in cases of 5, 6 police officers to restrain one individual. If we begin to add up the man hours and all of the medical costs that are involved in this, it just is simply astounding. And the severity of the poisonings. In all of our years of poison control, we have never seen a drug like this in the United States. something that is legal, because they hide under the name of not for human consumption, because it's not sold as cocaine or heroin, it's sold under a false name. Federal legislation is now making moves to stop this. State legislation is making moves to stop this. We're encouraging every level of our agencies and our communities and law enforcement and healthcare to make the right moves to help remove this drug from our communities. It not only affects the individual, it affects the families, and it affects everyone that becomes involved in this. We have a new breed of drug dealers that are hiding in plain sight, and we need to close those loopholes to get this drug off of our streets and to save our communities. So on behalf of the Upstate New York Poison Center, I strongly encourage you to help support everything you can do in Herkimer County to eradicate this drug from our streets. Thank you very much.
Lee and Maureen, I want to thank you for that informative information. I know our county attorney, Mr. Malone, is working on some verbiage for a possible resolution that would be entertained at the public safety level. So we do look forward to helping you out in that cause. Thank you. Now, for the comment period by residents, I would ask that you hold your comments to 5 minutes apiece for a total of 30 minutes. And I believe we have one person signed up, Mr. Streeter from Ilion. His subject matter is public comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. I understand that the proposal initiated by the Administrative Committee to modify the public comments rules has been removed from the agenda. For that, I'm very thankful. I sat with great interest during Mrs. Maneen's committee meeting the other night as the issue was discussed, and I think I do appreciate the sentiments that you have expressed during that meeting. There were many charges of negativity in all of the comments, nothing that was very uplifting. There was a great display of chagrin and at the thought that you might have to sit through some unpleasant statements occasionally, or often, or over and over again, as some have said. Let me talk to you about some of the comments that I have made that I'm sure you call negative. I made comments about an impromptu and, dare I say, illegal meeting of the Public Safety Committee. Your own rules require that there be public notice maybe for a meeting that can be held. But one was held. It was impromptu. It was like Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland put, let's put on a show. So we had a meeting. That was illegal. That's a negative comment. I don't know how you can make it positive when it's against the law. I also made some negative comments about the Labella performance in the Seeker. If you remember, there were 4 or 5 different outstanding errors in that report. One being that there's no public controversy over the siting of the jail at the PNC site. No public controversy. We've been offering different opinions on that for a year and a half now. And most astounding was Labella's determination that the traffic flow at a 130-bed facility would be no more than the traffic flow now at the present facility. That's absolutely absurd. I'm sorry it comes out in a negative way, but I don't know how you say anything positive about that, except to say it's a positive absurdity. There were comments made by legislators during that meeting that they've grown sick and tired of hearing the same thing over and over and over again. Misinformation over and over again. And we kind of turn that back on you people. It's almost an hypocrisy when you say that, when you understand that we sit in the peanut gallery and hear you say over and over and over again misstatements like the state mandates that we build a jail. Not only was it stated and printed, it was even used as justification for some of the resolutions. And that's not true. The state cannot order that you build a new jail. I think you knew that when you were saying it. We sat here and heard over and over again that we would earn $500 a day by housing federal prisoners, federal inmates in a new jail. And that's not true. I showed my legislator a letter from the United States Congress a year and a half ago, and we still heard, even after that, $87 a day is what the feds were paying. I still heard even after that, over and over again, $500. So it cuts both ways. You may not like to hear some of the things we've said in opposition to the jail, some of the things we've said over and over again, that if it cost us almost $300 a day to house in and only about $100 a day to house out, that common sense says we ought to explore fully the opportunities of housing out our prisoners. There's no pride or claim to fame to having all of our people here. We're using as a reason for the CHA is that some other people can handle health care better than we. We use as justification for the manor closing that other people can do something better than we. Well, Sacanada County can do a jail better than we. If they can afford to take our people in about $100 a day, and our own budget will tell you, you know the numbers, I'm going to keep repeating, almost $300 a day. So I do repeat that to you and wish that you would pretty soon pay attention to it. We had to sit, okay, thank you. We had to sit here and listen over and over again about the deteriorated, dilapidated condition of the jail. And we know that that was just, I don't know, smoke screen. I'm not going to be able to get this all in, but I come back to my initial statement. Thank you very much for reconsidering your initial intention to do away with the public comment or make it almost impossible by requiring unanimous consent or even by changing it to the end of the meeting. It's going to remain as it is, and much as you may not like it, I will come back and have some more comments. Thank you all very much.
Communications by the legislature and the committees to which they have been referred to are listed on the agenda. Does any member of the legislature request mention of any particular communication? None, we'll move on. Sponsor, Mrs. Janine.
I just wanted to let you know that the Administration Veterans Affairs meeting was held Wednesday, June 27th. Information was brought forth to urge the New York State Legislature and the government to adopt and sign legislation to take action on the synthetic cannabinoids or the bath salts. And I appreciate listening to Maureen and Lee about more information on that. And we will have a resolution today in support of that. We are also in discussion in regards to our comment period. We have decided to withdraw the resolution on the agenda format for the public comment period. It was felt that more discussion is needed on the issue so that the committee could address the possible misuse of the comment period by organized political action groups and media outlet sources. Private agendas and subliminal campaigns by these groups are not what the public comment period was intended for or should be used for. And possibly there will be more discussion held at a future meeting.
I think we jumped into reports by
Committee.
That's okay, as long as you can laugh. Any other chairperson wishing to give a report? Anyone? We will now continue with the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the title of each resolution on the consent agenda?
154 is Public Safety Emergency Management with a monthly report of the sheriff. 155 is Ways and Means, transferring funds. And 156 is Education, Ways and Means, setting the public hearing on the college budget.
May I have a motion? Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Kuklinski. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Resolutions passed. Go on to 157.
Ways and Means, authorizing contribution to the defense of the Erie Boulevard Hydro Assessment Challenge.
This resolution authorizes contribution in the amount computed by the county's share to the legal expenses incurred by the town of Russia to the defense of the Erie Boulevard Hydro Assessment Challenge. May I have a motion? Mr. Russell, second. Mr. Poplinski. Any discussion? Mr. Russell.
In the past, we've done this. Usually the entity, the towns have come to us before to get permission, but this was a tax challenge. property in the town of Russia. So the Russia litigated it. And in essence, what we've done in the past, as long as the other entities, the taxing jurisdictions, are in cooperation, we share proportionately with those other taxing jurisdictions in regards to the amount of money that it costs to litigate. So it's in our best interest too that the towns litigate these, because obviously it's not just a challenge to their assessments, it's also a challenge to the amount of money that we'd be getting in prorated on the tax rate. So that's the reason why this resolution is here today. And I certainly urge that we support the town of Russia like we've done with other towns in supporting this resolution to help pay for the cost of this litigation.
Any other debate?
Mr. Chairman, do we know if the Bowen School District is on board?
They are.
Mr. Blakely?
They're paying the 60% of it.
Mrs. Rose?
I just wondered, I appreciate the explanation by Mr. Russell. Where does this money come from?
It'll come from the budget officer's budget or the county administrator's budget, because it's such a small amount.
Any more debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Resolution passes. Number 158. Mr. Wakely.
Mr. Chairman, can we just clarify that, I know that when I've abstained in the past, it's been explained.
I believe Mr. Wakely is an assessor for the town of Russia. Correct?
Correct.
158 is roll call.
That is Public Safety Emergency Management, Ways and Means for salary adjustments in the District Attorney's Office.
This resolution amends the salary schedule to make the salary adjustments listed in the District Attorney's Office. Clerk, call the roll. Need a motion. Mr. Hackman, second by Mr. Wakely. Discussion.
I would ask in this particular resolution where, and we did have discussion with the committee, where the first district attorney is calling for a position that is currently filled to have the salary raised, an annual salary, base salary of $85,000. There is a second part of this. There's a full-time assistant district attorney that is a base annual salary lowering it to $59,500. And I would ask that we vote in this in division, if we might. I think that's what Mr. Malone has said. We then 2 votes on the 2 different proposals. One raising the salary for the incumbent, and the second vote to be what we would do with the existing vacant position.
No second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, this is a proposal that came from the DA's office that's revenue neutral. The intent certainly was to make this into a position, in terms of making one vote for the 85 and one vote for the 59.5. It was to make it clear that the DA needed some help in regards to the first and felt that he could lower the other assistant district attorney. So I would certainly advise against doing that.
Mr. Chairman, the fact that the position is currently occupied at the salary that it was recruited under, that it was recruited under, I think says that, and I sat in the time that I've been on the legislature and heard, let's talk about salary changes in the start of our budget year. I appreciate that lowering the one position may well put the money in there to raise the other, but we know that we're in an election year. Very soon, in November, we'll know who, perhaps the current district attorney, will be the district attorney or whatever. I think that we can not increase the salary of the one, and I would ask for a vote on the division of the 2. And they may well both go forward, but I would ask that we divide.
Mr. Russell.
Mr. Chairman, everybody knows within this chamber that we can change that as of January 1st if we choose that the salary structure isn't working out well.
Any more debate?
If the person is, though, in the position to give a raise and then suspect that come January we would take it away, I would think that the person who's been here, a relatively new hire, and came for the salary that was what was offered, and as I understand, the individual is doing an excellent job. And I think the DA spoke to the fact that he was very pleased. So it's not a reflection on the individual.
Any more debate? Mr. Hart.
I have a great deal of respect for what the people who DA's office do and the DA himself. But however, I concur that halfway through the budget year, regardless of how the numbers are moved around, and we know there's an election coming up, I think the timing is bad. I think this should be addressed in January.
I'm going to allow.
And actually, I'm not, there's motions on the division. I would think would be better served voting on each salary individually.
It's going to make, Mr. Carpenter, would you like to make a clarification on this?
I would.
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to Mr. Rowe's comment, the position of the first assistant district attorney is not currently filled. So it is not the position that is going to the person is not in that position right now and going to receive a raise. Right. I anticipate promoting a person from the other full-time position to the first assistant district attorney. So the first assistant district attorney position currently is not filled. I hired that gentleman at the lower of the two salaries so that I could assess his prosecutorial skills, and in my opinion, he is deserving of the promotion, and it's the logical time then to move the salary structure around to not only compete with neighboring counties and make the first assistant more competitive with our surrounding counties, but also to lower and bring in line the full-time assistant position to that of starting salary of other district attorneys' offices. So I would just like to clarify that.
Mr. Hart.
Just a quick question. What is the current base salary of the first assistant DA?
The first assistant here, just
Yes.
the vacant position, 73,000 and change.
No, the first assistant is vacant, sir.
I'm just I'm not saying what's vacant. The first assistant is 73,000 and change. That is vacant. The position at the second person in the chart will be 71,000. These are the full-time individuals. Is 71,000 and change. So the person, the job that's occupied is 71,000 and change.
And both of the full-timers get all the benefits, health insurance.
Correct.
I am confused, if I could, because I thought at the meeting, I perhaps misspoke, I thought the first assistant position was filled by someone who came from out of the area. That is, we currently have both of these positions are vacant, is that right here?
No, when I hired him, Mrs. Rose, I hired him at the lower of the two salaries and did not assess him the first assistant position. So he was hired at the lower of the two salaries.
So he's hired as the assistant district attorney.
Full-time assistant district attorney.
Full-time, so that position is not vacant. The one that is vacant is the first assistant district attorney.
Yeah, salary structure-wise, correct, yes. And title-wise, yes, yes.
So we're talking about promoting an individual. See, that is a little different than I understood at the meeting the other night, perhaps it was my density. The full-time assistant district attorney is currently hired at a salary of 70-some thousand change. And we're suggesting that I don't want to get into the individuals. We're going to create a new salary structure for the first assistant district attorney, and that is the position that we would expect to promote into.
Correct.
Okay, and then the vacant position, as a result, maybe we have a vacant assistant district already.
Well, if that person were promoted, then the vacancy would now be with the other just full-time assistant.
And you're suggesting taking that position and lowering it from 70-some thousand and change to 59.5.
Correct.
I still would ask for the division. And in terms of raising salaries, we have said in meetings that I've heard in Mr. Russell's committee that those are the things that we take under consideration for the new year. And with the election coming, if Mr. Carpenter is our district attorney, certainly in the budget process for January, there would be an opportunity to do that. So I would still ask if it's possible.
Motion was made and seconded to split the resolution with the positions. May roll call or is this roll call?
Should be.
Roll call. I'll ask for the roll.
Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
No.
Wait.
Oh, this is
Just to divide.
This
This is on a division.
Yeah, this is on the division. This is not on the original.
So it's,
Don't divide.
no. Manine.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Hendricks.
No.
Hyde.
No.
Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mano.
No.
Smith. Bono.
No.
Ackerman.
No.
Pavlinski.
No.
Force.
No.
Russell.
No.
Shaw.
No.
Weekly.
No.
Hartman.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Now did we make the motion on the original? Yes, we did. Any more discussion on that? Mr. Shaw?
I think that this is to explain one other point that should be brought out. This is going to save taxpayers, I think, $750. So it's not an additional cost.
Any more debate? All those in favor? Mr. Hart?
I'd just like to point out that this is not for this year, it's salary structure, so in the long run, I think that 2750 will be eaten up, because I imagine that 85,000 will stay in place.
Anyone else? Roll call.
Chair?
Yes, it is. Hold on.
Did Mr. Hartman just say that it's not going to take place this year?
No, I said it'll take place throughout the future. We'll begin at 85,000, so this isn't just a cost for this year. This is a cost for going forward.
And if nothing else changes, Mr. Chairman, it will still be a savings of $750 going forward.
Questionable if you factor in longevity and all those other factors.
That would happen no matter.
Anyone else? Vice Clerk, call the roll.
Weekly.
Yes.
Hartman.
No.
Rose.
No.
Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Brzezinski.
No.
Piano.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Mulner.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Kaplinski.
Yes.
Corse.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Resolution passes on 159, voice vote.
Public Safety Emergency Management Ways and Means approving extension of Homeland Security grant.
This resolution approves an extension of a contract for a grant for the Sheriff's Department for the State Office of Homeland Security. May I have a motion? Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Hyde. Any discussion, debate? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution passes. 160 is a roll call.
Ways and Means making appropriation of funds from the general fund.
This resolution approves an appropriation from the general fund as listed. May I have a motion? Mr. Russell, second by Mr. Poplinski. Any debate? Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Piano.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bono.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Kaplinski.
Yes.
Corse.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Weekly.
Yes.
Hartman.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Brzezinski.
Yes.
Resolution passes. 161, voice vote.
Public Safety Emergency Management in connection with narrowbanding mandate and authorizing grant application.
This resolution authorizes purchase of narrowband radio equipment and application for grant funding in connection with the Federal Communications Commission's narrowbanding mandate. May I have a motion? Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Smith and Mr. Poplinski. Any debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Resolution passes. 162, voice vote.
Planning and Development, Ways and Means amending budget in connection with youth violence prevention funding.
This resolution amends the budget in connection with the funding for Rachel's Challenge Program and Treaty Program to prevent youth violence. May I have a motion? Mr. Poplinski, second by Mr. Johnson and Mr. Ackerman. Any debate? Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, just by way of information, I was invited to a session at the Reformed Church in Herkimer, and I was pleased to have been first at this committee where this was considered, because it was about bullying. And there were some very moving stories told by young children that were there from various schools in our community, and what children are being subjected to as far as bullying. And we know, of course, the new regulations on what schools are going to have to do to set in place to try to stop this practice of bullying and the far-reaching impact it has on children. I think this is wonderful that you're doing it. We're able to find a wonderful. Thank you.
Any other debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passed. 163.
Human Resources, Ways and Means and Planning and Development with a contract with Catholic Charities and Social Services for Youth Violence Prevention.
This resolution authorizes an extension of the contract with Catholic Charities in connection with the Department of Social Services Treaty Program. May I have a motion? Mr. Poplinski, second by Mrs. Manine, Mr. Smith. Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Resolution passes. 164 is
and Development, Ways and Means, contract for Rachel's Challenge for anti-bullying.
This resolution authorizes a contract with Rachel's Challenge for the provision of a program for schools on the topic of youth violence and bullying prevention. May I have a motion? Mr. Shaw, second by Mr. Poplinski. Any debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Resolution passes. 165, voice.
Administration recommends affairs taking state action on synthetic cannabinoids and or bath salts.
This resolution awards a bid for the provision of 7 replacement lots.
I'm sorry, it's locks, awarding bid for purchase of lock sets.
This resolution awards a bid provision for 7 replacement lots at the County Correctional Facility. Mr. Hyde, second by Mr. Hendricks. Any debate? Mrs. Rose.
When this was discussed most recently at the Public Safety Committee before this meeting, this $44,400 to prepare 2 locks on each 7 cells. And they've been offline, and I know that Mr. Hyde asked to have some figures in terms of what that would cost us. The fact that 7 cells are out of commission, and the kind of money that we're spending on boarding out, and then I asked where this money is coming from, and it's going to come from the boarding out money, which is severely tapped. And as I was pondering this, I'm thinking, wait, the boarding out money got used for an extended period of time for several months while we were trying to get bids or do whatever needed to be done to define what needed to happen to the locks that were out of commission. It certainly is a double whammy. And I hope that with these locks, we're getting those 7 cells online very quickly. We see an appreciable change, at least as far as those cells are concerned, and that we work very hard not to get to the point where we would have 7 come offline at the same time. It's a cost that we're hoping we can have to bear. Thank you.
Any more debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Resolution passes. 166. This resolution urges the state legislature and the governor to enact legislation prohibiting use, possession, and purchase of synthetic drugs. Mrs. Minnie, second by Mr. Wakely and Mr. Johnson. Mr. Hyde. Any debate? Mrs. Rose.
If I understood correctly with the folks that were speaking to us, and it certainly is terrifying statistics when we pick up the papers to sell business. What we were being asked to do is have our own resolution in addition to this in support, and that, as I understand, that will be brought to the committee. Very good, thank you.
Any more debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Resolution will pass. 167.
Ways and Means approving standard workday and retirement reporting for elected officials.
This resolution adopts the standard workday and retirement reporting resolution for elected and appointed officials as listed. May I have a motion? Mr. Russell, second by Mr. Wakely. Any debate? Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, when this came before the committee, we had entries into days and months. We had, I don't believe, the draft. We had the standard workday, and I know that this is something that I've been interested in since I came on the legislature, and I, up front, am the beneficiary from the state retirement system after 37.5 years. And I know that when we're listing the elected and appointed, we have people like the county administrator, the county auditors, director of purchasing, deputy director of purchasing, director of real property, director of office of the aging, clerk of the legislature, deputy clerk of the legislature. And this resolution calls for, well, it actually repeats what's there before, that a 7-hour day would be considered 1 day for purposes of retirement reporting. We know that the regulations require at least 6 hours to be reported as full-time. In this resolution, we have a group of people, all the legislators, and that are being reported here. And then we have various people in the county attorney's office that are reporting at 6 hours, the minimum number of hours in order to be reported for full time. These then are supported by logs that these individuals keep in how they're attending to their duties. And we're all over the board on that. I did ask to see the logs and in order to have an informed vote on this. And unfortunately, when I came to see them, I was given just one of the current logs. Others, new legislators were not available, and our new elected, and other legislators were allowed to continue to use their former logs. I have asked to see those. I would like to propose an amendment to this resolution that the standard workday, hours per day, should be 7. We had a conversation with the county district attorney, actually, when he was here, although his offices are not on here, since they're not new appointments. And he said it's standard in his operation to assume that his attorneys are 7 hours and 35-hour work week. And I don't understand why we have taken appointed officials and made them at 6. I don't understand when we have, as Mr. Smith said, very hardworking people, and it's not to surprise that the county attorney's office are not hardworking people, but I just question why they would be 6 hours in full-time when our very hardworking people are 7. So I would propose an amendment to this resolution that appointed officials that in this resolution that are currently noted at 6 hours be modified to be 7-hour workday to account for 1 day of retirement credit rather than 6.
Is there a second? Mr. Hartman, any more debate? All those in favor?
Roll call, please.
Roll call. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't see you first. More debate.
So I guess what you're trying to do is we're voting on the retirement report. And you're trying to make an amendment to it to change the reporting days from 6 hours to 7 hours per day. And we've had separate ones in the past. I guess I'm not quite sure why it is you're trying to change that. This is simply a vote on this document in regards to the reporting day. If you want to change the reporting day, the amount of hours in the reporting day, there should be a separate resolution to do so, just like we've done in the past. What you're doing is you're taking this, you're changing it midstream after we've already made this legislature throughout its resolution. You've already made the working day 6. Now you're trying to change it to 7 to try to, in actuality, what you're trying to do is screw people out of a certain amount of time. So, I mean, we know that's all question.
Mrs. Crowley?
That's not my intention at all, just to screw anybody out of anything. It's the issue for me, and I thought we were required to do 2 things. Define the standard hours in the workday and then report the credit. Is this only reporting the credit? It's not defining the standard hours in the workday? I thought we had to report with new appointed positions the standard hours in the workday. Can you clarify that?
I don't have my resolution in front of me other than this, so I don't know what to say.
It says the standard workday. We've established the following as standard workdays for elected and appointed, and we'll report the following day's work. So this resolution is doing 2 things.
No, we have established it already by resolution. Standard workdays for each of the various departments.
Do we have to reaffirm that every cycle, I believe?
I'm not familiar with that, Mrs. Rowley. Then we'd have to do some research on that, because I believe Mr. Russell is correct. Previously, this body has formulated and passed a resolution dictating what our workday is.
I believe, okay, well.
We'd be subject to.
I believe that we reaffirm it, but perhaps I'm wrong. Again, it's interesting to know why one segment of our workforce is treated so much more lucratively, I guess, in terms of retirement than others. And I've never heard an explanation of it. I did bring this up in the committee meeting, and I forget how it got dispensed with.
Did you want to rescind your motion?
Oh, no, I'd like the motion to be done.
Mr. Hartman?
I can only speak for my rationale. Well, first let me say, screw people out of time. I thought that was not such respectful debate, but I don't think that's anybody's intent here, nor should anybody be accused of that. But at any rate, this is my first year here, so what we've done in the past was done in the past, and if I was here 5 years ago, I would have asked why our attorneys only need to work 6 days. And that was reinforced, and especially our county
Mr.
attorney.
Chairman, point of order. This resolution does not have anything to do with the work day. It has to do with the retirement reporting.
These individuals.
His argument is not germane to this resolution. We can take that up at another committee.
He's correct.
The amendment is germane to the
Well,
work
what on
day.
your amendment was
That's what I'm talking about. So how can I vote on my amendment if I'm not going to?
I moved the question on the amendment.
I was in the middle of speaking. You can't interrupt me to move the question.
It's the rules.
Penny, you gotta be kidding.
Finish what your statement was, and then they can move to vote.
Okay, I would think, I mean, 7 hour standard work day is pretty good.
I can move the question anytime.
You, 7 hours is, you know, I think pretty good compared to others in the private sector. 6, like my question is, I'm sure the county attorney puts in a lot of hours. And when I asked for information, I had to FOIA because he was so busy. So why does he only work 6 hours, I guess would be the question. So I think everybody should be on 7 hours.
Call for the roll.
This is the amendment.
The amendment. This is to move the amendment. I'm sorry, to move.
Mr. Harkin, second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not voting and move the question. We're voting on the amendment.
The amendment by Mrs. Rose, second by Mr. Harkin. That's what you're voting on.
Call the roll.
Okay. Mrs. Medine?
No.
Johnson?
No.
Hendricks?
No.
Hyde?
No.
Brzezinski?
No.
Vano?
No.
Smith? Bono?
No.
Ackerman?
No.
Kaplinsky?
No.
Corse?
No.
Russell?
No.
Shaw?
No.
Weekly?
No.
Hartman?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Schrader?
No.
Now, with the original resolution. We made that motion. Refresh my memory. Mr. Hyde voted. Yes, okay.
On the original?
More debate.
I did ask to see the logs because, again, we're all over the board in terms of how we work. We're adopting a resolution tonight, this afternoon, that has, for example, 20 days would be considered full-time. 20 retirement days would be considered full-time. And we have people on this resolution that are working 35 days. So maybe this goes to Mr. Smith's comment about the very, very hard worker that we have with some people that are working 35 days out of a 20-day period. I think that the logs would be an interesting piece of information. It's my understanding that in order to make an informed vote, I should have been allowed to see them. I did talk with Mr. Freeman, and he suggested that when you're voting on something that should not be withheld, Mr. Crandall did respond to me in less than 5 days, as he's allowed under a FOIL. I just question again the need for me to have to FOIL the information that I believe I needed in order to act appropriately on this resolution. And lacking that information, I'm not going to be able to vote for it.
Anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Roll call.
You ask for roll call, please.
Ackerman?
Yes.
Kaplinsky?
Yes.
Corse?
Yes.
Russell? Shaw?
Yes.
Weekly?
Yes.
Hartman?
No.
Rose?
No.
Schrader?
Yes.
Manine?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Hyde?
Yes.
Brzezinski?
Yes.
Vano?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Bono?
Yes. Resolution passes. That concludes the resolution portion. Correct? We'll go to comments by legislators. Are there anyone? Mr. Corse?
No, I'm
I'm
good.
sorry I cheated you last
I'm
time. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn, please. Mr. Manning.
Well, before I motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman, I want to remind my colleagues that next meeting, August 15th, we're going to be taking our group picture. I believe it's 6:30, Carol? 6:15. 6:15. And also, there's going to be a public hearing on the Herkimer County Community College budget at 7 p.m. And with that, I move to adjourn to August 15th, 2012 at 7:30 p.m.
6:30. Second. We're adjourned. Thank you. Great.